It's a gloomy Monday here for me, Seattle Kraken fans, and mostly I'm talking about the weather, although I could be talking about yet another Seattle Kraken performance where we have the lead and we squander it. Another performance in which we regain the lead and then we squander it. Another performance in which we allow opponents to score 2 goals within less than 20 seconds of each other. Yes, we are going to talk about that Chicago win. Not a great performance by Seattle, and yet still some great performances at times. What does that all lead to? A lack of consistency. Is it because they're not practicing enough? Is it because they're not resting enough? Let's grapple with all of this on today's episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken. I'm your host, Erica L. Ayala. Yesterday's game, Sunday's game, we liked the 2-0 start. We liked the comeback at 4-3, but there were things in between that ultimately led to another Seattle Kraken loss. It's tough not to feel disappointed by this, particularly because we continue to be left wanting more from the Seattle Kraken team. Some of the things that I'm about to say on this podcast, I feel like I have been talking about since last season, and that's the frustration. That's the difficulty. We know this is a new franchise. There were expectations that were pretty high last season that I think were a little bit unwarranted, and we struggled. We suffered. And I was like, I'm not going to do that again. A lot of writers, we're not going to do that again. But then the allure, the excitement of Shane Wright, Matty Beniers, and of course, Burakovsky and Bjorkstrand, not to mention this all-in mentality and attitude about offense. It just seemed like everyone was willing and ready to turn the page on last season and move forward to year 2 with a better concentration on offense. If you are a longtime listener to the show, and thank you so much, you know my biggest concern has been defense. And I will continue to say it is my biggest concern until it gets addressed. These were defensive problems that we had, and we're going to break it down here. Lapses in defense in particular. The only way that you become a team where your calling card, your stamp, is that you are a team where you can score multiple goals within seconds of each other. The only way that happens is if you're an undisciplined team and you lack focus defensively. That's how that happens, regardless of the opponent. A lot of people talking about this game, of course, I even on Twitter, on Locked On Kraken Twitter, was like, it's the revenge game of Eddie Olczyk. And, he didn't like necessarily that he wasn't able to go back to Chicago. That's how we land him. And so there's the drama there, right? There's the conversation about where Chicago, are they in a full rebuild? Are they burning it all down? This is a team that, including the Seattle Kraken, though, they've been able to come back and win by multi-goals because of their grit, their tenacity. A lot of people rooting or kind of saying that Chicago's out of it. Chicago put the Seattle Kraken on notice, and I think the league as well. So where is that for us? What is our version of that? I talked about it last season. I talked about it this season. We've talked about the energy lacking for the Seattle Kraken. Well, we got 2 goals. We got 2 goals early, and so that's a good thing. Jared McCann Andre Burakovsky each get their third goal. You'll love to see that. What I liked about the McCann goal is it was perfect setup. Really, honestly, both of these were showing the offensive prowess. And so I did like that. With the McCann goal, it's Geeky and Coleman who just did a fantastic job winning the puck, entering the zone with some speed and some determination. And Geeky, at the intermission, he told Piper Shaw that he heard McCann calling for the puck and he knew where McCann was going to be. That's the kind of stuff I love to hear. That was perfect for the first goal. For the second goal, it was just a great job by Andre Burakovsky. He and Eberle did a great job on the forecheck. The Seattle Kraken were actually, or I should say the Chicago Blackhawks were trying to come out of the zone, and Eberle and Burakovsky stayed pinched on the boards, Eberle in particular. So Chicago had to push over a centering pass. That's where Burakovsky was able to get the interception and got a steal in their offensive zone, sets up a goal. Burakovsky did a fantastic job just waiting it out, picking his corner. Loved that. But then what do we see for Chicago, their first goal? So Burakovsky scores at 7:31 later in the period. So now we're talking about, 3 minutes left in the period, 2-0 lead. And at 17:04, the Blackhawks are able to score, and that's on a really bad turnover. Vince Dunn exiting the zone and gets his pocket picked. So if he's exiting the zone as a defenseman, there's nobody but Martin Jones back there. So I didn't like that. Also, we gave up a power play in the last 2 minutes, and it was and not only was Vince Dunn the last line of defense, but we were on a power play. That's a shorthanded goal. Those are the lapses. You shouldn't ever be just coughing up the puck. You definitely shouldn't be coughing up the puck. So this meant that the Hawks were pressing. They were pressing on the forecheck, shorthanded on the penalty kill. And Vince Dunn didn't stay strong, didn't stay aggressive, even if he had kind of shielded. So he's skating forward, even if he pivots his body so that his back is shielding the puck and kind of, pirouettes. Protect the puck as you're exiting the zone. You have to. That drove me crazy. Power play goal. Bob's your uncle. 2-2 at the end of the first period. Then we go into the second period. 32 seconds. 32 seconds in on the power play. A goal. A goal for Max Domi, his third also of the season. Now, what I liked about this is 20 seconds later, we get a response goal by the one and only Matty Beniers. Now, this was not a pretty goal, but I liked the grit. Again, you see it was Schwartz. He did not have a good control of the puck, but still found a way to put it on net. Good things happen when you get the puck in front of the net. Bang, Matty Beniers gets back on the board. That would be Schwartz and Susie that did a really great job setting up Matty Beniers for that one. Then we get Vince Dunn scores, and he owed us one. I remember thinking that. I didn't tweet it, but I was like, yeah, Vince owes us one. So he puts us up 4-3, 10:43 mark in the second period. We go all the way to almost the 13-minute mark in the third period before it's back-to-back goals for Chicago. This is what I saw. At the Tyler Johnson goal, there were 3 skaters. So this is not including Martin Jones, who was in net. We'll talk about some of the roster changes in the next segment. This is 3 skaters. So 4 members of the Seattle Kraken, either in the crease or at the goal line, really in that space between the crease and the goal line. There are 4 members of the Seattle Kraken there. Wide open space. Chicago plays the puck from behind the goal, and they have their pick because we're pushed and just scrunched into that space. We're watching the puck, not picking up body to body, stick to stick. And if you watched on Root Sport, you noticed that JT Brown, Eddie Olczyk, and John Forsland were talking about some of the good plays, body to body, stick to stick. Justin Schultz had a good play. I think it was Susie also had a good play. But then we have these lapses, body to body, stick to stick. You have to make contact. You have to mark the opponent. You have to know where your opponent is. And I have no tolerance for those kinds of defensive laps. That led to the Tyler Johnson goal within short supply. Just seconds later, another shot, second goal in. Both of those were at even strength. And it's extremely frustrating to try and figure out what is going on with the Seattle Kraken, that they're not able to clean up these things. It's rinse, wash, and repeat. Why are we giving up consecutive goals back to back within, anywhere from 20 seconds to 2 minutes of each other? That's demoralizing. That's deflating. You can't get momentum if you're giving up goals in short supply. Boom, 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 just like that. Making mistakes, coughing up the puck as you're exiting the zone. Can't do that. Can't do that. The final goal for Chicago, I have to take a look at it again. Perhaps Jones got screened in front. That's another issue. I think personally the Seattle Kraken let teams camp in front of our goaltenders way too much. That's another stick to stick, body to body. And you're not just kind of, playing, I don't know, where you're whacking each other's sticks, whacking each other's shin guards. You have to move the bodies. You have to move the bodies out of the way. Speaking of essentially lateral movement, I noticed on the broadcast that Eddie in particular was very critical of some of the passing. I think it's a give and take with Seattle. I think we play very direct at times. And so I, for one, am okay with some of the movement. I'd like to see, honestly, the Seattle Kraken use the length and width of the ice a little bit more. We've seen the shot charts for Carolina, and we've seen the shot charts against like a Vegas team and where they're shooting from versus where Seattle is shooting from. But I want to see us move the puck a little bit more. And some of that lateral movement doesn't bother me. Now, we also have seen times, though, where Seattle is holding on to the puck too long. So I think it's a give and take. It's not just shoot the puck, because if we're getting up shots, the Seattle Kraken in this game, for example, that, we're getting up shots, but we're not getting goals. What's the freaking point? 34 shots to 27 shots. Look at this. Oh my gosh. Face-offs. 70% at the dot for the Blackhawks versus 31% for us. An offer on the power play. Is this because we're not shooting? Is it because we're passing too much? Can you tell I'm frustrated? I feel like that was a mini rant. I'm going to try and take a beat, take a breath. We're going to hear from some players. You're going to hear from McCann, hear from Beniers, hear a little bit from Hakstol as well, because I talked about this in my cold open. It seems like some people think we should have more practice. Some people think we should have more rest. What is the balancing act? Do we even know? I'll give you my thoughts on all of that coming up on Locked On Kraken. But right now, let me tell you about our partners at Simply Safe. The numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen Simply Safe home security to protect their home. You don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. At Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. And here is what we're hearing from people that are using Simply Safe in their homes. Now, you have monitoring experts that are using proprietary advanced response technology to visually confirm when a break-in is real, so you can get the highest priority police dispatch. Simply Safe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors in every room, window, and door. HD security cameras for inside and outside of your home, and overall just smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real. So all of these and more are why Simply Safe again has had over 4 million people choose their home security product. So we want to help you out and make sure you're keeping your home safe. Protect the D zone, baby. Let's go. So you can customize a perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/lockedonnhl. That will save you 20% on a Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan, and you get your first month free. Head to simplysafe.com/lockedonnhl to learn more. There's no safe like Simply Safe. And I tell you what, Seattle Kraken fans, we need Simply Safe for a lead. My goodness, we blew the lead once again. And here's what Dave Hakstol had to say after the game.
Well, there's a lot of takeaways. Disappointing loss. I mean, but we did a lot of things that will end up getting you beat on the road. Including you can look at our our performance in face-offs, specialty teams, really, including a shorthanded goal that really feeds them and gives them life in this hockey game. Down to probably most importantly, just the way we checked and played without the puck in the last 45 minutes of this hockey game.
What do you think that disconnect on special teams came from today?
Well, if we had been able to fix it, we would have been able to push back in this game and turn it around. But we weren't able to fix it on the power play tonight and really have an impact in turning the game the right direction.
Bursts here and there. Sounds like last season. Is it harsh early in the year to be comparing? On the one hand, yes, because there was a decent amount of turnover at the trade deadline in the offseason, players getting acclimated. I mentioned that we're going to talk about some changes. So Philipp Grubauer is day-to-day. That's why we saw Martin Jones and Joey Decourde is now up from the the Coachella Valley Firebirds, who got a win at Climate Pledge Arena on Sunday. So that was good. But Joey Decourde was with the Seattle Kraken in Chicago. Now, this is an emergency call-up, so he will not have to go through the waiver system again. I know a lot of people were talking about that. So we had Philipp Grubauer, out day-to-day. Joey Decourde up. Yanni Gourde also not on the roster, not with the team right now for personal reasons. Sounds like he might be ready for tomorrow's game, but that's still up in the air. But we saw Morgan Geekie slide in there. We did see Shane Wright. No, he didn't have a lot of minutes. And yes, I'm okay with that. We're going to talk more about Shane Wright and Matty Beniers and their development this week with a special guest who is going to be joining us on the Locked On NHL channel and network. But you'll hear a little bit more about that starting tomorrow. So we had some turnaround here. The lines remained relatively consistent, but again, with Shane Wright, not getting a lot of ice time, that means on the fly changing some of the lines. So let me show you the lines that rolled on Sunday, very similar to the other day. But you got to think, if Shane Wright's getting, roughly 5 minutes of ice time, what are we doing with some of our other guys? With Shane Wright not playing a lot of minutes, you got to think, you've got Sprong and Fleury who are healthy scratches. But at what point are we going to say, all right, we're not giving the kid time? Daniel Sprong had to work his way from a PTO to make the team. What do those guys now have to do? Is Shane Wright showing any more in practice than those guys? But are we having enough practices? We didn't have practice leading up to the Chicago game. That was the second time last week that Seattle Kraken practice was canceled. And, Jared McCann had some thoughts about that and mentioned explicitly that they haven't had a lot of practice time. Let's take you to some of his comments post-game after the loss in Chicago.
I thought we had a good start. I thought, we kind of took it to them there in the first 20, but just got comfortable, just kind of got complacent, and, we can't do that.
9 of you had points on 5-on-5, but the special teams had a little bit of a hard time. Where do you think that disconnect comes from?
I just think we just got to keep working on it. We haven't had much practice time. Obviously, we've been game every other day here for the last little while, and we need to figure it out.
And so you heard there that Jared McCann does mention practice, and Matty Beniers also spoke to media. He was asked explicitly about practice, and I thought he had a very diplomatic answer. I think he's right. Things change, but let's hear what he had to say, and then we talk about it.
It's kind of an art, closing out a game. I think there's a little bit of pressure. They're in their home building, so, they got some momentum, and, all it takes is a couple of mistakes, a couple shifts, and they're right back in it. They take the lead. So, I thought we played a pretty good game overall, but, you take a couple shifts off, and boom, they're up. So.
Jerry mentioned that lack of practice could be something that if you guys get a few practices in, you can improve some things. Do you think that's a good idea? Good point?
It's difficult. I mean, we're playing a lot of games right now and we're traveling all over, so it's finding a good balance between practicing and trying to get rest, which is just as important. So I don't think anyone has the right science down for it, but so I think we were just focused on getting rest, and I thought we looked good today from it, but just couldn't close it.
So again, I mean, you know me. I'm in for all things Matty Beniers. I thought he did a great job of being diplomatic. It is tough. On the one hand, you want rest. We know how important getting rest is. On the other hand, getting repetitions is important. And I am personally of the opinion, what the crap are we doing that these guys need so much rest early on? What are we doing? So I get it. It's a tough schedule. It's a grind when you're going from time zone to time zone. As someone who does that now, you know that I travel a lot. I've been in 3 different time zones in the last week or so. That does take a toll. And I want to be open to that as a concept and be empathetic about that. That being said, that's the game. That's what you sign up for. They're not the only team having to deal with it. And you have to, in your recovery and in your practice time, in your training camp and your preseason, work yourself up to being physically fit enough to weather the storm. I don't know, and it seems like nobody knows, right, what the right balance is, which is why when people are starting to have conversations about the coaching staff, primarily by Dave Hakstol, these are valid questions to bring up when questioning if it's time to make a change. If some of these things like managing the fitness and the fatigue level, if these are things that the current staff can't do, they either need to get more help or they need to get people who know what they're doing. I mean, that's one of many things. And why is rest and recovery important? And why do I think it fits into my game notes from today? Is because if we're having lapses, those are mental errors. So in my estimation, you make mental errors when you are lacking focus or your body doesn't trust itself enough. Individually and collectively, you don't have that muscle memory down. The lapses are endlessly frustrating. Yes, I know it's a teenage team. I coined them a teenage team last year, but a teenager eventually grows up. And a teenager, even though we know that cognitively they're going to make mistakes, that doesn't mean that they do so without consequence. And if winning and losing isn't bad enough, if continually losing a lead and being embarrassed by losing a lead isn't enough of a motivator, that's when the coaching staff has to step in. Because right now, the only person that we see continually with consequences, air quotes for those listening on audio, is Shane Wright. And I don't even think that that's really a consequence of him not doing what he is expected to do at 18 in his rookie season in the NHL. Where's the accountability? Where is that coming from? If it's not a fire that can be ignited from every individual player within, that's your job as a coaching staff, is to manage that stuff. You don't always have to play mind games a la Tortorella, who I know sometimes plays mind games, gets under the skin of folks, but you have to have a plan. I don't know what the plan is other than saying there were some good things. There were things that we've got to clean up, and we've got to be better at that. We've got to be, do I sound like Dave Hakstol? Because that's what I hear every time. I could play a game from last year and play it in a post game for tomorrow's game, and it likely will sound the same. That's extremely frustrating. Not to mention, it makes it hard to do a podcast. Like, hello, if you're telling me the same thing, but you're not telling me how you're fixing it, and it's not getting fixed, what the heck am I supposed to talk about? I just am over here screaming into the microphone. Because at least then, you can at least hopefully feel and see that I'm not okay with it. I've lost track of how many rants I have gone on this episode, on this podcast. I didn't want to record it yesterday because I needed a minute. I thought if I gave myself a little bit of separation from the loss, that then I could, be succinct in my summary. I don't know. Sleeping on it might have been even worse. It's extremely frustrating. But coming up next on Locked On Kraken, let's look to the week ahead. What's coming up? And I want to get you ready for some conversations as it was requested. We are going to do a little bit more of a deep analysis into Matty Beniers and his development. And also, of course, talk about Shane Wright with someone new to with someone who is going to be new to the network, a host of a show called Locked On NHL Prospects. So we're going to talk about that coming up on Locked On Kraken. Not great, but there's more to play. And this might be a little bit of a break in a schedule. I've been alluding to, I think really the broadcast has been alluding to that it was a bit of a tough schedule coming out the gate. I mean, we've already played Los Angeles, we've played Vegas, who didn't make the playoffs last season, but they looked pretty good. We played the Canucks. We've played some tough competition in the season. I think that's worth noting. We've already played the LA Kings. They were in the playoffs. The Vegas Golden Knights were not in the playoffs, but they played us tough. That was that 5-2 loss in Vegas. Carolina, again, they probably could shoot from the top of the arena and snipe any goaltender in the league. They love shooting. We played Carolina. St. Louis, that was a tough one. And then we get the Colorado Avalanche. Now, that's the game that we win. But it's a tough schedule. So, Chicago, I think we missed an opportunity to get some points there. Tomorrow, Tuesday, it's back at CPA against Buffalo. Then Vancouver. Woo! Vancouver is not playing well, folks. And Thursday, circle. If we can't make some of these changes for the game on Thursday, Friday's show is going to be an absolute rant. I might even have to stand up to do that show. And then, Saturday, the Penguins are in town. So you got to win the games against the teams that are not performing as well as you are. And right now, the Seattle Kraken, we talked about it last week. They're kind of middle of the pack, but that's going to start slipping. If we can't get these wins, if we can't keep leads, we're going to see ourselves at the bottom of the pack. Right now, I mean, Pittsburgh is second overall, 9 points. We're playing them. Buffalo, 8 points overall. We're playing them. Vancouver, again, they're at the very bottom, have 2 points overall. We're 22nd with 6 points. Buffalo wasn't a great team last year, but they're getting it together early in the season. You got to get the points when you can. So getting that win against Vancouver, we missed the mark when it came to Chicago. Now they're in 17th with the points that they were able to collect against us. You know, we were at 500 going into that game against Chicago. Now we're below 500. That was a mark that I was looking for. Are we above? Are we below 500? That's what I'm looking for the Seattle Kraken team, and we have to build consistency. So it's going to be an interesting week, folks, but also sprinkled through the games that we will talk about is going to be our conversation with Hadi. Now, Hadi is going to be our new host of a show, brand new show called Locked On NHL Prospects. And so I think you're going to enjoy our conversation. I'll put the full video up if you want to watch that. It's longer than our usual show, but I'll have that up later in the week. But you'll get a taste here and there from Hadi as we're talking about all things Seattle Kraken prospects, mostly focusing though on Shane Wright and Matty Beniers. But we also got to talk about some other of the top 4 picks from the 2022 draft. So that's coming up this week on Locked On Kraken. That's the show for today. We're going to hold fast. We're going to stay true, and let's go Kraken. We've got a game tomorrow, so we'll get you ready with a game day episode. Until next episode, take care of yourselves and each other. If it's a rainy day where you are, stay nice and warm and bundled up, and we'll catch you tomorrow on Locked On Kraken.